I'm in the midst of exposing my ex for the abuse he inflicted on myself and my children during the course of my marriage. Some people are aware of this, but some people aren't, so I'll catch you up to speed. What I am alleging is that I was raped, I was financially controlled, I was pushed downstairs, my teeth were broken with a beer bottle, I had 100-pound suitcases thrown at me at skate contests, I was choked multiple times to the point of not thinking I would survive. My children's lives were threatened. He threatened to unalive my children. My kids witnessed all of this. I have evidence. So that's where I'm at currently. In May, I had posted a video to ask my friends and family to call me my real name and not the nickname that I was given by him. From there, I was issued a cease and desist. It is my belief that the reason he was able to issue that cease and desist is because he is in close proximity to someone who has access to a lawyer like Marty Singer. I have been talking about this abuse lightly for years. It's been on the internet. This isn't a new thing. The reason it escalated is because of the cease and desist. Now, like I said, I do have evidence of all of this. I've posted about evidence. I've given evidence to people that need it. My goal was never to get him off of any sponsors or anything like that. I do understand that when a company has a personality that they're paying that has allegations like this, that they might have to part ways. I'm aware of that. That's not my personal goal. My personal goal is to be able to tell my truthful story because that is my reality. I don't want to be silenced any longer. I was silenced for 15 years. Anytime I reached out for help, I was met with, well, if you say anything, then he won't make any money, and that'll hurt your kids. My kids were used as leverage against me in order to keep me silent. There is a consensus of people who think that this is a private matter and it should be kept quiet and the people involved should be dealing with it. They think that if a woman speaks out, that it's icky, it's messy, and that's just not the appropriate way to go about it. I'm here to tell you right now that most people who are abusive are not going to course correct on their own. Talking about it publicly is an incredibly healing process. It's an incredibly beneficial process. I had robbed myself for years of the love and support that me and my kids are now receiving because I'm talking publicly about it. And I think I have a right to do that. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. We don't have to be in each other's orbit. I only want people in my orbit that care that this happened to me, that are there for me and are willing to tell me that it wasn't okay. That's what I want in my life. So if you are not part of that circle, we're good. We don't have to be friends. There is a culture of silence inside of skateboarding that allows this type of abuse to run rampant. Since coming forward, I have had so many people, hundreds of people, message me that they've dealt with this themselves, a lot of women inside of skateboarding specifically, and I'm just appalled. I'm just really upset that I'm the one speaking about it, but it is just so frequent. I'm not talking about just a toxic relationship, which I understand is what my ex is telling people it was. And another thing I'd like to mention, there is not an abusive relationship that has ever existed that doesn't include toxicity. They are inextricable. Yes, it was a toxic relationship. Abusive relationships are toxic. That's not an excuse. That's not a reason. That's not a reasonable thing to say about an abuse victim. It is a completely unfair dynamic to expect the victim of abuse to be the bigger person, keep it quiet, and keep things not messy. It's just too messy to bring up abuse. That's not fair. The fact that the abuse happened is the problem and it needs to be addressed. I believe that skateboarding has a responsibility to its community members outside of just the skateboarders themselves, and I think that there's an avenue for them to make considerable and meaningful change. That's now my goal. That's not what I started out to do. I started out just to tell my story, to help in my own healing process, to let my friends know who I am, who they're speaking to. That's what I wanted to do for myself. Now, after this process, I'm just seeing a bit of the bigger picture. It's more than just me. I'm not alone here. I used to reject the term victim. I just really didn't want to be considered a victim or a survivor. It felt like it wasn't me. I wanted to be seen as someone who was strong, a director of people, a manager of people, an intelligent person. I am all those things. They're not mutually exclusive. You can actually be both. And what I realized was, hey, I'm in good company. I'm in good company with the other survivors and the other victims of domestic violence. I'm proud to call myself a victim. I'm proud to call myself a survivor because I got through it, and it is now my job to lend a helping hand to the other women who are still dealing with this, who are still dealing with abuse as it stands, the culture of silence, the shame that comes with being in an abusive situation. I just want I want to help end all of that stigma because it isn't right. It isn't right to further victimize someone who's been in an abusive situation, who's crawling their way out of sub-bedrock conditions to just get their kids safe and secure, to then say that they're the toxic ones for speaking about it. I am not about that. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you. There is evidence out there, and if you're interested in seeing it, maybe I'll post some of the evidence here. There's another aspect of all of this that I'd like to address, and it is the aspect of protecting my children. I've gotten a little bit of feedback from people saying that this isn't fair to do to my children to speak about it publicly. I wholeheartedly disagree. I just fundamentally disagree. What was happening for a long time is this was an issue that was just not allowed to be spoken about in our homes. Because of that, my kids didn't have an ability to express how they were feeling about the whole dynamic, what they went through. I had them in therapy. I participated in therapy with them. We would talk about it, but it was very centrally focused on behavioral learning and how to cope with emotional stress and things like that. It was extremely beneficial. It was a great foundation to relearn the steps to deal with emotional trauma and learn how to regulate. My ex was invited to this therapy and he declined. I am just so in awe of my kids for being dedicated to the growth process that they had to go through. We did nearly a year of 2 hours each, 1 hour individually and 1 hour all together as a family for almost a year, every week. It was exhausting. It was extremely exhausting, but it was worth the effort. I'm so proud of them and everything that they've how far that they've come, how much they've grown, and everything that they've put into this healing process. Speaking about it publicly has allowed them to express themselves in a genuine way without fear of another level of anxiety befalling them and our household. I don't know. I just fundamentally disagree with the idea that keeping this out of public view is what's best for kids. I think that it's a really sinister view and a sinister take on how people should deal with abusive situations. I just fundamentally disagree. And here's the thing. They're not that young. They're not young. My son's 18. My daughter she's 14. Like, I understand that for a 14-year-old, these are complex issues, and I deal with it with her as though she's a 14-year-old. But my son is 18. He is allowed to express the frustration and trauma that he had experienced, and he's still trying to make sense of it. I don't want to speak for him, but I do understand that since himself speaking publicly about it, he's been able to connect with other people that have similar dynamics and, find a community of people that is supportive of him. And he now has more of a network to reach out to that goes far beyond just his own mother or his own household. I just think that's a really, it's a great thing. Like, speaking, here's a quote that my therapist told me. The difference between trauma and a bad memory is being able to speak about it. So telling my kids that they can't speak about it themselves just serves to further the trauma. it is really a bad idea to tell kids that they can't speak about these things, that, it's better left in the past. There's some things you just don't speak about. That's not okay. It's just not okay. It has to stop. And for all the people that are concerned about my partner and his feelings on the matter, I think he's pretty satisfied with how I'm approaching all of this. He was the first person who allowed me to be upset about it in the first place. He was the first person who made me feel like I didn't have to sweep it under the rug in order to be viewed as a valid person and someone worth caring about. I had other partners that were super gracious about this whole dynamic and were really supportive. I just wasn't ready to have a relationship when I met those people. My current partner aggressively took my side to the point he stood up for me more than I was standing up for myself, and that's what I really needed. So for anyone who's concerned about him in that way, you can very safely put that concern to rest. I have been going through all of this evidence that I have regarding my abusive relationship and trying to speak about it publicly. And during all of it, I'm finding some of the most ridiculous instances and ridiculous circumstances that I had to deal with. One of them being while my children were in care of their father, their house was absolutely disgusting. I'm talking dog urine, dog feces in the house, just absolutely abhorrent conditions, like black mold, mushrooms literally growing out of floorboards that have just gone undetected for however long it takes for mold to grow and mushrooms to start growing out of floorboards. No cleaning of any toilets. It's just rotten food everywhere. It was so disgusting. It was like level 3 hoard, maybe level 4 hoard if you were to go look those up. So in my custody hearings or my custody mediation, I filed in there, I asked that Dad keep a house cleaner while the kids, in order for him to maintain custody, Dad must keep a house cleaner. And he argued with me. So he and his attorney were saying, Christine is being really controlling and she can't dictate the level of cleanliness that is at Dad's house. So my attorney pulls their attorney aside. Again, this is mediation, not in court. Pulls him outside and she shows him the photos of what we're talking about. He comes in, face totally changed, and says, okay, back up. Then he takes Dad out, talks to him, and they come back in, face change. Okay, we will have a house cleaner. And they said house cleaner was they would agree to once a month. And I said, no, if you're going to see the kids, at this point it was supposed to be 50-50 custody. I said, no, you need to have a clean house more than just once a month. And they argued with me and said, okay, fine. Dad will keep a house cleaner, but Mom has to pay half of the house cleaning expenses. And I agreed because I just wanted my kids to have a clean house to live in. And it was so bad that I was playing the safety game. I was like, whatever to get my kids safe. And I think that they thought I would back down or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, in my marriage settlement agreement in the custody part, it says Mom has to pay 50% of Dad's cleaning bill. I'm going to post it because it's just fucking ridiculous. Yeah, the house was that bad. Oh my God. Do not marry stupid men. Don't do it. Husband's house cleaning. The parties agree that husband shall hire a housekeeper to clean his home on a weekly basis. The parties shall split the reasonable cost of housekeeping services 50-50 until my daughter turns 18 years old and is no longer in high school. Are you fucking kidding me? I also want to say thank you to Rob Brink for giving this story a platform. And he's been really supportive and kind to me for years. It's kind of a full circle moment because years ago I did an interview on his show and laughed off an allegation of abuse back then. And it was awkward and weird. And, looking back on it, it's a really painful moment, but it's really helpful to bring that all full circle and be able to have that interview with Rob. So if you're interested, clips have been released, but we will release a longer form version soon. And that is called The Brink Show. And here's like where you can see it on Instagram. So if you're interested, you can just follow Brink Show on Instagram, and he will have updates for when the longer form version is released. I'm not doing this for fame at all. I'm trying to tell my story, and I just have someone that is a little bit stronger than me at the moment that is helping me do so. If you see there's 530 followers on this podcast, it's not like I am going on some major publicity tour. That's not the goal, and my goal is not to be a famous person. I have historically rejected anything like that, and I will continue to. I like my blue-collar work. I'm very, very proud of the work that I do, and it doesn't need to be public in order for it to be valuable. Another person did a rundown of the situation, and I felt like it was really fair and balanced. I don't think it was super biased. I personally feel like he touched on things in a subtle way that was just really appropriate, so I figured I would mention it. This is the YouTube show, so you can just search that to try and find it if you're interested. Thanks.